Hello, hello, lovely people. Welcome to another episode of the DevRel show. I was starting to mix my show because I always do the same intro, no matter if it's the DevRel show with Fred or Backstage with Fred, which is a series of interviews I do when I go to events. So not live. It's more like a vodcast or podcast, a video podcast that I post after. But yeah, sometimes I mix the show. But now, no, it's the DevRel show. Always happy to be here. You may have seen I had an episode last week. So because, I started to travel again and it was a little bit harder to do it every other week like I used to do when I started the show. Now, and I have like a bunch of people on the wait list. Like I have like about for the next 2 years of guests, which please, if you still want to be on the show, let me know right now so I can add you to the list. So now I try to do it every week that my schedule let me do it. So with that said, episode 51, because I think I celebrated episode 50 last week with the friend Jeff from AWS. That was a great milestone, but hopefully it's just the beginning of many more episodes. And today, another amazing guest. I'm so lucky. It's certainly like I'm gonna sound cheesy now, but like it's seriously a privilege to be able to do that show. Because like just a quick story, and after that I shut up and I moved to the guest. But the idea, and if you listen to the show before, you know what I'm gonna say, but like the idea of doing the DevRel show was 2-3 things. One, I had unfortunately had to move to different jobs during my career, which means that like everything that I was starting at a company, I was basically losing the show or the series or the live stream or the webinars that I were doing because I was doing them for the company under the company property or channels. And when I was moving to a new job, I was like, shit, I really like to do that, but I don't do it anymore. I cannot do it anymore. So I was like, hey, I want to start my own show, something I'm going to own, unrelated to who is my employer, who's giving me money. But also wanted to, continue to demystify developer relation, meet other DevRel people because, there is not a lot of us doing that job, but there's still a lot of people doing that job at the same time, if that makes sense. So there was an opportunity for me to, connect with either some friends or new friends like Alex right now. Don't think we've never met in person, but also an opportunity for developer advocates to, talk about their product, talk about their career, give other people visibility, even if the show is not making like thousands and thousands of views, as long as I'm having fun and my guests are having fun too. That was kind of a goal. So again, just a privilege being able to do that. With that said, though, the guest, as I always say, they're the one making the show, and I'm with Alex right now. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well, thank you. It's a balmy 98 degrees down here in Raleigh today, so
I need to translate.
It's a warm summer, that's for sure.
Oh, see, it's like that everywhere. Like I had to translate Fahrenheit to Celsius. So for me, it's around like 36, 37 Celsius.
Well, you and me both. I mean, you can tell from the accent that 98 Fahrenheit probably isn't my native tongue. But anyway, anything approaching 100 anything is blooming hot. So
it is. So I'm not going to complain about how hot it is for me right now because it's less than you, but it's still way too hot. And it's like that everywhere. Like one of my employees in Czech Republic, and it was like around like 40, a little hotter than you right now, like 40, 41, like 2-3 days ago. So
that kind of heat in Europe too. I mean, there's just no escape from it.
Yeah. Planet is going to shit. But with that said, though, who are you?
Yeah, doing very well, thank you. Yeah, it's always a privilege to be on a show like this, and thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure. Thanks for being on the show. So, second question for you: who are you? Tell us a little more about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Alex. I work for Tailscale. Have done for a few years now, and I am massively into self-hosting and digital sovereignty, and just freeing myself from the shackles of big tech, I suppose, and trying to bring other people along for that ride along the way.
I really wanted to talk about that, but like before I have like some like quote unquote more generic question about that, did you see the announcement of PlayStation? I think was yesterday or
which one?
Which one? The one that like they're gonna say
same
like
company.
A more physical disc.
Right. Sony are the company that are going to revoke 500 titles that you've bought from your library. And then, oh, hey, by the way, you can totally trust me, bro. We're not going to sell physical discs anymore. It's like, do you think we're stupid? Like, I mean, many people can see the parallel between those two things, and it's to cut down on resale markets. The number of times I had as a youngling, a friend of mine at school like loaned me a game for a weekend, and I got a chance to play something that I would never have been able to afford to buy. Or it's just such a shame. Like, we're losing such a part of our collective culture in this moment.
I know, and I just realized now that my question was not related at all to self-hosting, but at the same time a little bit, because there's a part where, like, when you want to self-host, there's obviously, like, you get more control, but like you also own something, and it just made me thought about the news also, because before like starting the show I was reading about that, and that, like, a lot of people are pissed off. But like, what's blow my mind is people that are how can I say that, sucking up to big companies,
defending it. Like, they're just shrugging it off like it's no big deal. And it's like the old adage of I've got nothing to hide, so I've got nothing to fear. It's like people who say that because I personally have never bought a game on a physical disc means that all the other people that have are now, like, their opinions are less valid than my own. But no, the point is that you had the option of a disc drive, and I think a lot of people paid extra for the PS5 that had a disc drive back in the day, simply so that they had the option should Sony decide to put prices up on their digital store. I mean, why are digital games the same price as physical ones? There's no distribution going on. I mean, it's like ebooks are the same thing. It's the old adage of, like, if buying isn't owning, right?
Yep.
Fill in the rest of the sentence. It's one of those frustrating things that happens. Netflix pull content all the time. My soapbox, it's over there. I'll go and get it if you want me to.
I know. I was getting, like, started on that too. I started to reply to people, and I'm like, no, don't feed the troll. I don't want to do that.
No, there's no point.
But it was like, that was also such a privileged statement to defend that, because like, I can afford personally the full price game, but a lot of people can, and like, physical disc was a way for you to buy, like, games, like secondhand games, and be able to not pay the full price and be able to play with it, or be able to, like, give it to your friends, or have like your other families being able to play with it. Anyway, we can talk probably about that for 30 minutes, and I would assume that we both going to start to be really annoyed and pissed off about it. So but maybe that's going to be the same discussion. You said that, I forgot how you said that, like someone who's really, let's call it like that, someone who's really into self-hosting.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Like, how do you translate that?
Well, it started off 15 years ago, I suppose, with a Plex server, a few ripped DVDs and things like that. And then maybe 10 years ago now, I co-founded a website called linuxserver.io with a few buddies of mine, where we sort of packaged Docker containers for people that were, at the time I was an Unraid user, and Docker was the new hotness at the time, and there was just nobody making Docker images, so we thought, right, well, screw it, we'll make them. So there was Plex, there was a bunch of other self-hosted applications in there too, and then over time, like, this movement, I mean, it wasn't even called self-hosting. It didn't have a proper name back then. It was just
this
plugins.
Is what we're doing.
Yeah, and now there's this whole ecosystem, and like YouTube zeitgeist that's fed about self-hosted apps, this and that and the other. Yeah, it's for me, what it means is that my data stays within my control. Like, Photos is a perfect example. Like, we know that Google Photos was probably a loss leader for them, but they did that in order to get the data so that they could slurp up all the people in the background of my photos, so they could build this network of all the people that I'd been in the same space with over time. And like, metadata is very valuable, and being able to train other people's models with all sorts of, like, I mean, this is all just conjecture. I mean, I don't have any proof of anything else, so I suppose I should say this is all alleged stuff that I'm saying. But when we see the current round of AI companies coming through that are basically just hoovering up any content they can possibly get their hands on, copyrighted or otherwise. It just makes me really nervous, and I want to have some kind of an insurance policy for my own data against price hikes, against data slurpage. That's not the word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
All of those different things. It's
that makes sense. And you also mentioned pricing, and that's the thing. Even if you are in a mindset of like, oh, I think you mentioned it, like, oh, I have nothing to hide. Like we offer here about this from people that are like, no, it's fine. Like I can put my digital footprint, or I can give my thumbprints, or I can give my iris, and it's fine because I have nothing to hide. And okay, fine, but like, what about like the total control, as you said, around your data, but also around like everything? Like we're just talking about PlayStation, and people are really now I would say naive to think that like PlayStation won't do anything evil with that, and they won't decide like to boost the prices or just remove a game that you paid for, because in theory you quote unquote
no, they'd never do that. No,
they will never do that. But like it's like this for everything, and like especially right now, as you said, also we don't own things anymore. I had the misfortune of also being naive many years ago. I had a lot of CDs. Like if you don't know what that is, kids, it's the physical things where you put music in. One of the last ones.
They all watch Stranger Things now. I think they know what a CD is, right?
Yeah.
At least they've seen one on TV. Whether they've held one.
They should know about that. But I had a lot of them.
The other day, I was doing a series for my personal YouTube around Jellyfin and sort of owning your own media. And I went to a thrift store near my house that specializes in physical media. And I took my kid, she's 5, right? And we found the Frozen Blu-ray. So she recognized the cover, she recognized Elsa, and we opened it up and we had a look inside, and there was this circular thing inside, and she just picked it up, like both hands on. She touched the shiny side with her thumb. I'm like, no, don't do that. And she's like, why? What is this thing? And I had to explain it all to her about how there's a little tiny laser, and like they just don't know because they've never had to know.
Yeah. No, but and that probably make you feel whole a little bit. I don't know. That would have been for me.
Yeah.
But
well, there's a thing, isn't there, about how like our generation is going to be one of the only ones that's had to know the world both before technology, and we were kind of in that crossover period where it was half analog and half digital for like 20 years, and we had to really truly understand how stuff worked to kind of, honestly, that was part of the fun for me. It was like, this thing should not be able to talk to this thing, but I'm going to make it do that. and you got to get the right cables, the right adapters, you got to get the right software together, and also the Windows XP drivers are going to crash 13 times on you. And that was where I cut my teeth in that kind of millennial soup of just stuff, the promise of technology being probably where it is today, but the hardware just wasn't there. And I don't know, like I wonder often for my daughter's generation, is she even going to be able to touch type? Like I wonder, like on a physical keyboard, because she's only ever really going to know the touch screen. Like I remember Blackberries. I remember a T9 keyboard. Like I could text with one thumb in my sleep on a T9 keyboard.
That was amazing. Yeah, and a BlackBerry. My God, I built apps for Blackberries, but and your kids, and even myself right now, like I was starting to tell about the fact that I had so many CDs, and when things like, it was not Spotify at the time, I think it was iTunes, and it was like, hey, I'm gonna move everything like digital because I'm a tech guy, and like I'm also a little bit of a minimalist, so like I won't have like all those things here, but I still gonna have my music. And it's gonna be nice because I'm gonna be able to sync it easily on my iPod. And at some point I moved to Spotify because it was like, hey, I have a bigger catalog and it's cheaper. And I end up that like now I don't own any music. Like if I stop paying for that service, like I don't like, or if Spotify, like they have the free account, but like let's say I don't have an account, I'm thinking like I don't own any music anymore. And at some point,
that's the other thing, right? Is that how many dollars have you spent with Spotify over the last 10 years, 20 years? Well, how long has it's been around a while now? It must be like getting on for 15 years. That's a lot of CDs. That's a lot of Bandcamp stuff. And let's be honest, how much new music do you actually listen to in a given month? I know for me, as a huge music nerd, maybe Angine de Poitrine up here from your neck of the woods is one of the newest ones for me lately. But I listen to the same 100 albums, and I have done for the last 10 years. Like, okay, I'll add a new one to the rotation every now and again, in which case I can go to Bandcamp and buy it or whatever. But the value in Spotify and streaming services and stuff like that is that kind of Sunday morning, like I want to put some, easy listening on in the kitchen whilst I'm cooking pancakes with the family or something, But for the rest of the time, like building a library or putting some care and craft into assembling a solution. And this really is, I suppose, the crux of why I love self-hosting so much. It's like, I'm going to fix the album art in this on this album. I'm going to import it into my Navidrome self-hosted Spotify clone, and then I know it's fixed forever. Like, that's it. I never have to touch it. Nobody can remove those files, or I will always have access to those files, regardless of what shenanigans is going on in the digital licensing realm. It's happened to me on far too many occasions, particularly for me, actually, because I'm a classically trained brass band musician from England, right? It's literally the smallest niche of music in the world. But there are so many recordings I have of brass bands from when I was at university that they're never going to be on Spotify. They're never, not even on YouTube, but they're on CDs that I got a copy of from one of my professors, and I ripped it in the school library when I was a teenager. And I've still got those bit perfect copies of those files, 15, 20 years later. I never find them ever again. But I have them because I'm into self-hosting and because I care deeply about that kind of preservation.
Yeah, and as I said, I'm a little bit sad that like I believe that we're going in a better direction. It's better for some stuff, but like overall, I think I've just been ripped. So I lost a lot of those things because I was like a believer that like, we're gonna go digital. That's gonna be easier. That's gonna make my life easier.
We all gave that box of CDs to the thrift store. I have a picture of it from my car when I put my box in the car boot of my car and took it to the thrift store and just gave them probably what is like $500 worth of CDs these days. I regret that because I went through this Marie Kondo phase where I was trying to declutter my life. Did it spark joy? And a box of CDs I thought at the time wasn't it, but yeah, regrets. I've got a few.
Yeah, and we're talking about music, but like it applies to a lot of things.
Software right
now, like I'm really annoyed that like I cannot use any software anymore if I don't pay an amount every month or at least a yearly amount of money. And it also sometimes it brings benefit. Like there's software that like have so many great upgrades, like StreamYard that we're using for live stream is a great example where like I need to pay per month, but like they're really doing an amazing job. Like every time I do a show, I have a pop-up about a new feature. Some of them I don't use, but they also don't disrupt the flow and what I'm using. They try not to like they do not change things that are not broken, but like most software provider does. Or they change the UI, or they change the UX, or they remove a feature that was useful for you, but maybe not useful for most
drives
people.
Me crazy.
That is like, it's not even just about the money. It's the fact that I have no control whatsoever. Prior to that, I'm that old. I would have been able to pay for the software once, install it on my computer, and if I didn't want to upgrade, I was still using that version of the software. And if it was good for me, it was good for me.
And the thing is, like, even if you're using an open source project, and they do change the UI on you, because it's open source, you can just fork it and keep using the version of the UX that you used to know and love. Of course, that comes with its own burden in terms of trying to keep things up to date and secure. And, when you adopt an open source project under your wing, of course, you're entering into a long-term relationship. You've got to be aware of that. But the point is that you can do it. You don't have to, but you can choose to do that. It's just such a powerful thing. And I think, when I joined Tailscale, this is sort of about 3 years ago now, the reason I found it such an exciting company to kind of nestle up with was because it solves the core fundamental problem of self-hosting for me, of how do I access my stuff when I'm not in the same building as the stuff? Like, how do I give my mum access to the photos that I've, we a couple of summers ago, we spent a couple of weeks in a conservatory in her house scanning all the negatives of her grandparent, or my of her mum. And all of those photos are now digitized, and they live in an image instance in my basement here with ZFS and UPS and backups and all the rest of it, and replication and all the stuff that I know how to do because I'm a sysadmin nerd type that she wouldn't ever want to, or she'd have to pay a lot of money to a cloud service to do. But how do I give her access to that stuff? For me, it's easy. I just share it with her over Tailscale, and it just figures out how to connect from point A to point B, and I just don't have to think about it. And that for me is like, it's such a superpower. We as technical people forget just how much over the many years we've been in an industry, how many little things we've absorbed. And that, like, if you were to sit somebody down at a console today and explain to them everything you've got going on in your home lab, they'd look at you like you were made of cheese. I mean, we just wouldn't have a clue. And we all forget this. What we're doing is actually amazing. We are basically replicating big tech in our houses with servers. Okay, Rampocalypse aside, servers that cost $100, $200, because the needs of an individual are so modest compared to when you're running a hyperscaler sized business where you need data centers that are slurping up entire nuclear power stations worth of power. Oh, this is the other thing. I went to Virginia a month ago, and I stayed in Ashburn, like where US East 1 for AWS is. And I tell you, they are building so many data centers down there right now. I'm just one person, right? But I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe they're building buildings that are the size of stadiums. There's like 10 or 12 of them going up all at once. No wonder we can't buy any RAM right now.
Yeah, and it is one problem of like all those data centers. Like you should see like people living near those data centers right now, like the noise that it makes, like just the cooling system, the water that it uses, because for reasons you just need to use like, quote unquote, let's call it new water. You cannot reuse the same water.
Yes, the laws of thermodynamics being what they are. Yes.
yeah, and like just the electricity that is being used. Like there's a lot of like going on there, and yeah, that's totally different discussion. I don't think I want to jump at it right now, but I understand the fact, and I like that you said also like all those little bits of information that like we gather during the years, because I do a lot of like coffee chat with people that are a little more junior starting in the tech, and often the feedback is like, oh my God, like you're so good. And I'm like, no, I just have way many years of experience and I've done like so many things, and I gather a little bit like every time. So it's not that I'm better. It's just like I've been doing that for a lot longer than you are doing it. So
I wonder if it is a separate conversation, though, because the same patterns that we're seeing in the I'm not meaning to make this into like a whole like AI bad conversation, because I think it's a lot more nuanced than that. But the same patterns of centralization and control are being exhibited here in the AI space as they have been over many other spaces over the last decade plus. And that's what concerns me, really. So whenever I see the chance that I could run a Quen model with Hermes locally, and I can kind of replicate some, not all of the power of a data center, but some of it, just down here in this rack behind me, I have a framework desktop. It's about the size of a stack of 5 CDs or whatever. It's 5 liters in size. And that thing can run an AI model at like 100 tokens a second. And I can have what's ostensibly a fairly convincing conversation with that thing. It's not in the same league as like a GPT 5.5 or a Fable or whatever. But what I've been experimenting with is with Hermes, there's something called like model fusion, where I can have the expensive models do a task the first 3, 4, 5 times. And then it teaches the local models. It writes markdown files for them, and it teaches them the steps. It does all the reasoning, the complicated stuff. And then on the 5th or the 6th iteration, I only need the local model, and it never leaves the house. And then from then on out, like, I'm never paying for tokens. I'm never paying API fees or anything like that. Okay, I'm paying some electricity cost in my rack back here, but it pulls 100 watts. It's like a light bulb. So I'm not really worried too much about that for my personal needs. And again, because we are individuals, our needs are very modest. So it's the AI space is just one of those things that we're going to have to wait for something to change materially on the economics. I think it's entering its Uber free ride period, loss leader period ending. I mean, at least I hope so. We'll see though.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes. But yeah, it's funny also the cycle between, like, I'm old enough that, like, we were quote unquote self-hosting everything before, and at some point, like, the cloud computing became a thing, and people were like, there is no way I'm going to put my data elsewhere. And we saw the convenience, because there's like something nice about it. As you said, like, you don't have to manage the software depending on what you do. You don't have to manage the hardware. And for company, like, there's cost offset because you don't pay for the thing. Like, it's a service you pay, and there's some benefits. But we went from, like, nobody wanted to use cloud computing to, like, everybody use cloud computing. And now I see that trend, like, for the last 3 years, maybe 4 years. Like, I talked to a lot more people like you, or, like, maybe not as like you, because you seems to be, let's call it, intense when it comes to self-hosting compared to other people. But like, there's a trend of, like, obviously owning physical thing, but also, like, self-hosting things, and trying to take back the control on the data and the feature and the cost of everything.
I just hate how it's become normalized that the transaction is, I'm going to trade my convenience for all of my personal information.
It is.
Something in my brain inherently finds playing with Linux, playing with servers, doing DevOps type stuff. I was a DevOps engineer for a few years before I ended up in DevRel. Something inherently finds Kubernetes interesting to me, but I know that it's not for everybody. And so one of my kind of missions in DevRel is particularly when I'm making YouTube videos and stuff, is trying to make it approachable for people, because the primitives and the fundamentals of what we're doing here are actually very straightforward. You need a Linux operating system. Okay, it's pretty easy nowadays, relatively speaking. You need a Docker engine. Again, that's one command line thing you got to paste in. And then you need a couple of YAML files. And okay, this is where it starts to get complicated if you let it. You need some kind of resilient storage. And, if you start getting in the weeds of ZFS and backups and yada, like, that's where it can get complicated. But actually getting out of the ground nowadays, it's never been easier.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Switching the discussion a little bit, but, like, you started to talk about, like, Tailscale and why you decided to join. So right now you're the head of developer relation, and I was looking at your LinkedIn, and I really love the progression. You started, like, 3 years ago, like, developer advocate, and after that you were, like, senior developer advocate, and after that you became lead developer advocate, and now you are the head of developer relation. So what's your job right now? What does that mean to be a head of developer relation at Tailscale?
It's a case study in failing upwards, I think. Essentially, my modus operandi when it comes to DevRel, as I said a moment ago, really it's primarily is to be useful. And I think by creating YouTube videos and content and things like that people find utility in, they come back for more. They need, rather than asking the question of how can I promote the product, it's like, how can I find solutions that regular people will apply to their everyday lives? Let's use photos as an example. How can I enable people to back up their photos and get off iCloud and Google Photo subscriptions and self-host that stuff? And then, oh, by the way, Tailscale happens to be the easiest way to connect to that stuff when you're not home. Like, it's an implementation detail. It's a very important one, and obviously that's what pays for my time to make the videos. So it's like there's this exchange where there's like an unspoken rule with the audience where it's like, okay, I'm going to mention Tailscale a couple of times in this video, but the rest of it is all just genuinely useful information. And so when I think about DevRel, that's how I approach all of it, to be honest with you, is like, be useful to people, find where they are, create different tutorials at different parts of the stack. Yes, one week we'll be doing a detailed deep dive into Kubernetes and talking about operators and all the rest of it, and like the fundamentals of how that all works. And then the next week we're talking about how to install my colleague Kevin wrote an amazing blog post about this on my team this last month, how to install use Tailscale on your smart fridge. Like, I mean, so he has a Tailscale funnel web page, funnels a way to put a website on the internet using Tailscale, using the smart browser, the browser on his smart fridge for like a commuting dashboard in DC that is like a self-hosted app. I don't know, it's just the utilities for a networking app, they're just everywhere. So, but it's up to you to find the ways that make it relatable to your audience. There's no point me sat here going, Tailscale's the best thing since sliced bread. Why? Like, why should I care about what you're saying? And for me, it's like that's how I think about DevRel fundamentally.
I agree with everything you said. Like for me, my job is to the audience is developers, so my job is to give love to developers. I want to help them being successful. Obviously, let's be honest, I hope they're going to be successful with my product, but like I rarely talk about my product itself. Once in a while, I'm going to have a mention. Yes, once in a while, that's going to be a big product pitch because it makes sense to the people I'm talking to, because we launch a new feature. Like someone needs to create a video about it and tell developers how to use it or write a blog post about it. But most of the time, I'm going to talk about things that just resonate to the audience. And sometimes I'm not even going to mention my product. I'm still Fred from TinyMCE, and hopefully that's going to make you curious a little bit, and hopefully maybe you're going to go to a website and maybe you're going to try it. And like there's that chain of events. But yeah, it's like this is why that job exists, because if you try to do traditional marketing, or if you try to have like a traditional sales approach with developers, it does not work at all. So,
we're far too cynical to accept normal marketing, except we do like being marketed to sometimes. And I think for me, authenticity is such a vital part of what we do. You know, I was a developer for several years before I moved into this DevRel space. So like I can empathize, and that's a key thing. You've got to be able to understand the problems, and kind of you have to have lived them to be able to talk about them authoritatively. You have to have lived them and felt the pain is a necessary part of the process. You know,
it is. I was talking to someone recently, or maybe there was one of the episode of the DevRel show. Someone asked the guest, like, "Hey, do you think I need to have experience as a developer to be a developer advocate?" And both their answers was like, "Yes, you need to have." So for exactly the reason you said, like you need to understand the pain. You also need to understand the joy. You need to have a little bit of experience. I need to be credible when I talk to developers, because, you know, if you have someone who never code anything or never put anything in production that tried to tell me about what I do day to day, I'm not. You're not going to be trustworthy. You're not going to be credible when you talk to me or when
I am reminded of my first week on the job as a developer. Lord knows why they gave me production access, but they did. This was my first week on the job. You know what's coming. I screwed up a production database and there was no backup. So, I mean, look, that was not my fault. The fact that there was no, in hindsight, at the time I felt dreadful because I'm like, new job. Oh my God, I've screwed it up. But, you know, in that moment, I learned a lot of very valuable lessons. So did the people around me, I might add. But yeah, like you've got to have gone through some of those squeaky bum times to really understand the pain points that people have. And like, yeah, you can read a press release. Yeah, you can read a Hacker News article about this, that, and the other. But until you've lived it, until you've screwed up a production database, yeah, it's one of those things. It's not, we're not trying to be gatekeepy about it. It's just, you know, like, it's just a natural order of things.
I mean, you know, that makes sense. What we're talking was trying to think about the equivalent in another industry, because I really wanted to be sure that people understand that, like, I don't think it's keeping. You just need to have that experience and a little bit of expertise to be able to do the job. You don't need, like, I really want to be honest here. Like, before I started to do developer relation, I was an engineer, software developer for 10 years. I think I was good at my job. Was I the best? No. Was I the worst? No. I was like an average developer. There are people that are so much better than me. There were people that were so much better than me. So you don't need to be the best out there. You just need to be able to, like, you tried it, you've done it. I've done it for 10 years. I still miss it. Maybe a little less right now with everything changing in the industry. I used to miss coding full time. I still code because I think it's part of the job. You still need to play with the code, but I don't code full time anymore. But because I like the social, the human side of developer relation, the fact that, like, part of my job is to help people being successful and doing cool shit. I mean, like, when I put that in the scales, I'm like, yeah, I really like to do DevRel, and this is what I'm doing for the last, 14 years now. And I don't think I will ever go back to writing code full time. But
it's weird, isn't it? We have skills that are sort of tangential to being on, like, a software development track or an infrastructure engineer track, but for some reason we've chosen not to be in that particular trench for, doing that particular job. And then, we have to be articulate, at least so they tell me, and then, find ways to meet the audience where they are, whether that's YouTube, whether that's at conferences, whether that's in blog posts, social media, whatever. There are plenty of people that make a living in DevRel through writing code as well, like forward deployed engineers, or working on SDKs, or all sorts of other stuff. And that's actually a large part of what my remit now as leading the department at Tailscale is like trying to think about what shape a department should take. Because for a good couple of years, like, it was just me, like, plugging away in this room, making YouTube videos, and you see vanity metrics like view counts and subscriber counts going up, and you see things like product onboarding surveys saying that YouTube is the #1 discovery mechanism for the products, and you're like, great, cool, this is all moving in the right direction, but I'm just one dude. Like, I don't scale very well. How can we scale that motion? And so we're in the process at Tailscale. We're actually hiring right now at tailscale.com/careers if you're interested, of scaling the DevRel team. We're hiring an engineer right now who's going to be working on those kinds of things, like SDKs. How do we make Tailscale's Aperture product, for example, which is an AI gateway? How do we make that work better with the core Tailscale product? How do we solve PAM problems that we have with Border Zero, and just hacking on cool stuff and then talking about it? Like, if you told teenage me that was a job that existed, I wouldn't believe you. But it does exist, and it's a very necessary one. And so, like, once you figured out what sort of shape a department takes, then you've got to find the right people to fill those holes, and then work with them every day to bring out the best in them. At least that's the idea anyway. Time will be the judge as to whether I'm successful at that or not. But
I'm pretty sure I'm Team Alex on that one, so hopefully it's going to go well. But yeah, it's also great.
Team Alex, I like that.
It's also great that Tailscale is seeing the value of developer relation and investing in developer relation, because don't get me wrong, I've done that job in too many places for my own good, and most of the time I don't have resources to say, like, hey, if we want to be able to scale, or if we want to be able to be sure that I'm going to be a better job in that specific area of developer relation, I probably need someone who's going to be able to help me and focus on that, because again, I'm also only one person, or you have like 2-3 people on your team, and like maybe you need more resources. So having a company that see their values and are investing in it, that's great too. That's a good thing.
The most difficult part of DevRel is that it's a long-term motion. You can't just pull a lever and see a result next quarter. I mean, you can, and you some people do, but it's not a sustainable growth lever that, if you're doing it that way. And so the investments that people make in, for example, the blog posts that are on tailscale.com that my colleague Kevin writes, those are pieces of content that are long-lived, and they have long tails, and we see it in the metrics that people come back to these posts time and time again as they want to jailbreak their Kindle and put Tailscale on their Kindle to access their self-hosted book library when they're in the Maldives or something. Like, these are real use cases that people have that maybe they don't think about until they're in that moment, and then they find the Tailscale blog post a year later, and then suddenly that's their entry point to the world of Tailscale. And then they get home and they add their phone to it, they add their laptop and their server, and before you know it, they're going to work and saying, "Hey, boss, this Tailscale thing's it's pretty sweet. You should take a look at it. And by the way, it's cheaper than Cisco." And that's really the model that it's product-led growth. I'm probably not telling anybody anything that's watching this show new, but that's the way that the cookie crumbles for me, at least, is that it's a long-term play. And you just have to trust in the process. And when you're doing things like quarterly planning and stuff like that, you've got to look at what the business's OKRs are and figure out what tactical stuff you can do in the short term to influence that pipeline or whatever it is that needs to be moved that quarter. But then there's also this just steady, constant drumbeat of things happening behind the scenes, where you've got to have a video a week or a blog post every week or two, or you've got to help with a product release or a user conference that's coming down the road, or you want to go and speak at some kind of external conference, or there's so much to do. And really it's trying to make sure that you don't try and do it all. You've got to have some priorities and try and figure out what's actually going to move the needle for your company and your vertical and stuff like that. And because Tailscale is sort of designed around this free tier, where we give most of the product away for free, and then we start charging based on the number of the amount of usage you have and seats and stuff like that. For companies, there's a bunch of other enterprise features and things like that as you get further down the funnel. But essentially, my job at Tailscale is brand awareness. We are just raising the profile of the company, putting it in front of more eyeballs, making it more useful. There's that word again, making Tailscale more useful to people, and so that eventually they work their way down the funnel and end up as paying customers.
Yeah, you're feeding the top of the funnel, because it's really hard to get someone that never heard about you, that never tried you, that never met anyone from Tailscale, and hey, now you need to get the enterprise pricing level to do what you want to do, and voila, now you need to give us money. No, they need to start somewhere, and brand awareness is also important, because why would they use you if they don't know you exist? But I really like also you touch about the fact that because I believe the same, and that DevRel is a long-term type of approach to connecting with developers. And there, as you said, there's some quick win you can have, but I firmly believe, because we work at the human level, because part of our job is to connect with developers, either online and offline, it's relationship that you're building. It takes time, and it doesn't matter to me that right now, let's say TinyMC is not useful for you. Maybe in your next project, maybe in a personal project, maybe in your next job, that's going to be something useful. Maybe your colleagues in another department where you're going to have a coffee with, going to talk to you about an issue they have, and hey, I talked to that bald dude at a conference with the beard, and he told me about TinyMC. Maybe that's going to be useful for you. I was talking the last guest, Jeff. He's also doing DevRel at AWS, and he was telling me that basically he spent about nearly 2 hours per day just going on LinkedIn, connecting people with other people, sharing opportunities with other people. He is basically networking, using his network, his visibility to help other people. How do you put that on a scorecard? How do you put that on a business report? But there is tremendous value to do that, because again, it's about connecting with the people. It's about creating that relation. It's about helping people do whatever they need to do, be successful. And sometimes it's about hey, I'm going to put Alex in connection with Jeff, because you're looking for something that Jeff can help you with, or whatever. And I feel those things are part of the jobs. They're an important part of the jobs. Yeah. But it's so hard for me to go back to my manager and say hey, I spend the equivalent of maybe a day, a full day of work just doing stuff on LinkedIn. And I don't think it brought any new users or paid customers right away.
Or I went out to dinner with somebody after a conference that I made a connection with. I think about the heavy hitters in this DevRel space, and people like Kelsey Hightower, for example, come to mind, or Justin Garrison over at Sidera Labs. Those people. I've followed these people for a very long time. I don't actually care what company they're working for right now. I'm just interested in what they think and what they've got to say, because I know them as people. And there's several other people in the DevRel space that I follow that are just like that. And as you say, it's all about humans, sales and marketing and all that is like, it's a human to human connection. And yes, the technology is maybe how you connect to a random person the first time, but the reason they keep coming back is because of you.
Yep. Yeah. I had people that like follow me from one job to the other and discover the new product that I was talking about.
Yeah.
It's just because we connected for reasons. They liked me. I don't know why, but they did.
I can't imagine it either.
Yeah, I know.
I'm Team Fred.
Team Fred, but I can't imagine that people find you nice. Just because, it's your employer. They're the one giving you your paycheck. You touched a little bit, a couple of times about Tailscale. Can you just give us like the spiel, like what exactly it is if you don't know what is Tailscale and why should I care as a developer?
we should probably have started with that, hey?
Yeah, that would have been a good idea, but it's fine.
Well, Tailscale is fundamentally a connectivity platform. So it's the easiest way to connect your stuff together. So whether that's a server, a phone, a laptop, a CI environment, a Kubernetes cluster, you can run Tailscale in all of those places, connect them all together. And there is all sorts of very clever plumbing behind the scenes that does things where it makes firewalls disappear. There's a policy engine so you can recreate software firewalls like an SDN, like it's probably a more accurate way to say it. Essentially, your infrastructure transcends its physical location. You end up with a flat network across physical locations. So a good example of that would be my server in the basement down here. Right, I'm just a Homelab person, and I want to back up those files to a friend of mine's computer in Canada who's very kindly hosting a hard drive for me. How do I connect from point A to point B? Well, I could open a bunch of firewall rules. I could have a bunch of dynamic DNS, or I could, all this stuff. Or I can install Tailscale on both ends, and that's it. I'm done. The magic DNS with Tailscale will figure out the shortest route between the two, punch direct holes through the firewall, and that's all the configuration that's required. It's just literally installing Tailscale in both places. The same is true of like if I want to stream from my Jellyfin server when I'm on the train or something like that. Like I can connect back to my house from my phone wherever I am with no ports open in my firewall. And then that extends all the way through to like I'm a small team at work that wants to have a CI environment connecting to the GPU that's under my desk at the office because renting a cloud GPU is just way too expensive. Well, how can I possibly make GitHub Actions talk to that thing under my desk? Same idea. And when you start thinking about everything as like, it doesn't matter where it is. Like it doesn't matter where the GPU is. It doesn't matter where the CI is. It doesn't matter where my phone is. Everything can just talk to everything. It really takes a good 6 months, I would say, to really appreciate and unlock all the possibilities that something like Tailscale can enable for you. But essentially, in a nutshell, it's a connectivity platform with identity baked in, with privileged access management baked in, with things like AI gateway access baked in as well if you want to. Like there's so much I could talk about, but fundamentally, it's a connectivity platform.
No, that makes sense. And we used it at our previous company. We're building that Kubernetes product to help people like do GitOps more easily, like on different cloud provider. And Tailscale was one of the services that we're using. I was thinking about using it myself. I have a Synology since forever. And I started to travel again, which means that because I never took the time to set it up probably to have access really outside of my own network. I don't have access to most of my things when I'm traveling. And I was like, one day I just need to take the time to do it. But I'm also lazy. So feels like Tailscale could be like the easier way for me to make it happen. So I don't have to deal with the firewall. I don't have to deal with all the little things that...
Well, before I joined Tailscale, I was actually maintaining the documentation for OpenSense and WireGuard. And I installed Tailscale for the first time off of a Synology NAS at my mum's house, actually remotely, just to see what the fuss was about, because it kept popping up on Hacker News, and I'm like, okay, go on then, what's this thing? And I tried it, and I was done in about 10 minutes, and I'm like, there's no way. There is no way that just happened and worked. And so like I left it for a good couple of months to see how reliable it was, and it just kept working. So anyway, I liked it so much I switched over all of my infrastructure and applied for a job here, and well, 3.5 years later, here we are. So
I love the stories of people who started to use the product before like being paid by the company making the product.
Surprisingly rare though. Like the number of people that work for companies that don't actually use the products that their companies are making. And I think, again, it's about being authentic. Like if you're not feeling the pain every day that you're trying to sell or trying to talk about, I can't.
Yeah. No. I agree with that. With that said, I did not most of the time use the product for a new job, but I always tried it before to be sure that like I would like it. And I would be excited about it because that's really important in that job.
I've been interviewing a lot lately as we've been growing the team and stuff like that, right? And first of all, it's amazing to me just how many people use AI and don't modify a single word that comes out of it as their cover letter. Like it's so obvious when you're reading 100 CVs that one of them was written by a human and all the rest were ChatGPT. It's so obvious. Like DevRel sits at the intersection of, yeah, sure it does. Yeah, literally that's such a tell. Or when ChatGPT says something like, that's how it quietly won. Or like, it's just like, I can tell so much you didn't write this. But the real bugbear for me is like when you get to like a hiring manager screen, like the first round of an interview process, and you say to someone, so tell me a little bit about yourself and why you want to work at Tailscale. And they're like, well, I haven't really used the product yet. And I'm like, okay, we might as well just done. What are we doing? What are we doing here? Like, and you try and be polite and stuff like that because again, there might be a diamond in the rough. You just don't know, and they could have just been really busy in a personal life, or there's a million reasons why they might not have tried it yet. I mean, but then you ask them to try and explain the product in their own words. At least give me a concept of what you understand about what we do. And there was one kid I interviewed in particular. He was probably 6 weeks away from finishing his undergraduate degree, and he hadn't used the product. And I sort of said, okay, well, in your own words, tell me what Tailscale is, what Tailscale does. And he gave me 5 minutes of complete nonsense, and I just cut him off, and I was like, look, it's obvious you don't know, and that's fine. How about I can see you're in the middle of a semester. How about we connect again next week? You go away, do some homework, figure out what it is we do, and we'll do this all again, and I'll give you a pass. We'll do it again. This kid cancelled 3 minutes before the next interview the next week. It just said, sorry, not interested. And I'm like, bro, I gave you a pass. I gave you a chance here. And like, anyway, it was very frustrating in that moment because I was trying to be nice human and the universe just wasn't interested. Or at least that kid
really nice because I would like to think I'm a nice person. I think I am. Some people think I'm not because I'm really direct and bold. So sometimes it translates like Fred is not nice, but it's always done with love. If I don't like you, there is no doubt you will know it.
Yeah.
But like for me, when I hire people, if you reach my point, like as the hiring manager, or even if not, like maybe the first interview with HR, if you have like a first interview with HR, it's fine. But like once you start to talk, I was going to say real people, sorry HR, but like like people working on a product or something, or people you're going to work with directly, and you have no idea about like who's the company or the product. And I'm not even asking you to be an expert. I don't want you to be an expert. You don't have to learn everything about our product on your free time. No, at some point I'm going to give you money to do that. That's going to be part of your job to become an expert, or at least know enough about the product that you don't look like a fool when you talk about it in your own stage. But at least try it. Like try it. Take 30 minutes. 30 minutes. Try it.
Well, to some point, I agree with you. Like if you're applying to be in like a finance position or a role that isn't technical, but we're not. We're in developer relations, right? And we are talking about the product to people that want to know more about the product. And so where your baseline is, if it is totally zero, in some ways that's a superpower. But what I need to know in that interview process is, what's your aptitude for picking up something new? How are you going to bring the rest of the world along with you on that journey of learning thing? And if you in that interview process are just going to turn into a BS artist, that's probably what you're going to do in the job too. And what was so frustrating about that kid was I saw a glimpse of something. I saw a glimpse of something that might be good, and then it just blew up in my face. But anyway, the person we did hire for that role turned out to be great, and he's just been with us for a couple of months now, and he's doing a great job. So
good.
We got there in the end, but hiring, man, hiring.
Yeah. But it and the last thing about that, I don't ever think like you like, as someone who's looking for a job, especially in DevRel, you don't help yourself if you don't even try for 15 minutes the product. How do you know if it's going to be something you like? Like, there's people that when I was looking for a job, they contacted me, and I looked on the website and was like, oh, that looks great. I think I'm going to like it. And I tried a product, and I was like, that's a good product, but I don't think I can get excited about it. I didn't like it. And I can give you reasons. Most of them are personal. It's not about your product. It's not that your product is not good. Sometimes it was the case. Most of the time, it's just like, I don't see myself talking about that and being excited about that for the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, 10 years. Like, no, and so that was beneficial for me, because I did not end up in a job that, like, after a month or two, I would just hate it because I really don't like the product. So I think it's useful for the candidate to know, especially in that specific role. You need to be like, you don't need to be.
DevRel's a long-term motion, and so you got to invest in your people. You've got to give them chance to grow as well. Yep. And like I say, your ability to tell that story of you going from zero to being a product expert is a hugely valuable thing. Like, that is a superpower, because I've been doing this. Like, I've been literally living and breathing self-hosting and Linux and Docker and all this stuff for like every day for 15 years. Try as hard as I might, I cannot possibly empathize with somebody that's opening a terminal for the first time today. I just can't, because I have all of that intrinsic baggage of doing it every day. Much in the same way, like if you try to play a world-class footballer or something like that, like they're just going to be better than you just because they've been in that universe for so long. Or they're not better, they're just going to know more than you because they've been in that world. It doesn't make them better, it just means they know more, right? Just to be clear. Because you might be that person in 15 years, you just don't know, and unless you've tried it. Anyway, I've had this is such a great conversation.
And I like being also the learning about a new product when I join a company, and this is also what I would put into a superpower, because when I join a company and I do not know the product outside of like the 15-30 minutes that I tried it before the interviews, to know that like I know a little bit what it is, I can have a discussion with people about it, I can even have suggestions about the product or what's around the product. But when I become that kind of like customer zero, user zero right away when I start and I learn new things, I usually don't even ask people like, please do not help me until I ask you. And I go through the docs and I'm like, okay, that part is good. I did not understand that part in the docs. I can either fix it or make suggestions to people on it. I'm going to go watch the videos and I can understand what's missing, what I should build. So I'm basically going through the motion as a new users or new customers, but with my DevRel glasses to understand like what needs to be improved with the developer experience. Anyway, we've been talking forever. I would assume that we could still do that for another hour. I want to be respectful of your time. And so I think we're going to reach the end of the show. Is there anything else you would like to share with people?
Well, if you're still watching, thank you. It was a fun conversation. Thanks for having me, Fred. I really appreciate that. alex.ktz.me. You can find, I'm all over the place. I do YouTube all over. Yeah. Anyway, you'll find me.
Actually, we were talking before the show. I'm a little bit jealous of your setup right now. I never really invest that much in my setup, and I've done it in different part of my career, but I always lost the equipment because I was not the one investing.
This is my real desk. It's not a set, right? This is like when I'm editing a video, I will film it here, and then I'll take the SSD out and I'll go and plug it in over there, and I'll edit the thing back there. Like it's a real working room, and like there's the server rack here with my work stuff in, There's a server rack here with my personal stuff in. Like I've got separate, I try and keep everything separate, like a dedicated recording laptop so that I'm always logged into the right accounts. I can just sit down and press go when the inspiration hits me, you know. If I have to fart around with light stands for half an hour before I can press record, I'm just not going to bother. It's got to be here. It's got to be ready. So
no, I know the feeling. I've always said that like developers do not care that much about your background as much, like as long as the video quality is okay and the audio is good, like it doesn't annoy you, but still there's like, it's way much nicer to look at yours than my really ugly wall that I need to remind people I did not paint like that. It's when I bought the house, I need to paint it again, invest a little more in my equipment and better camera and stuff like that. It's going in that direction. Anyway, I'm blabbering now. Nobody cares about my equipment. Thanks for being on the show, Alex. It was a real pleasure.
Yeah, thank you,
folks.
Fred.
Thanks for the people who watch us live. You were a little bit quiet today, but you're still lovely people, no matter what. Thanks to the people who's going to watch the recording, because as we said, it's a long living thing that's going to be in YouTube. So if you were not able to watch us live today, you're going to be able to watch the videos. And see you next week for another episode with Joel Hans, who's going to be my guest for the next episode of the DevRel show. So have a good rest of the day, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night if you're that crazy, and see you next week for the next episode. Bye, everyone.